Hello, everybody. It is two queers in a truck time. And we got our two dancing queens, Queen Cano, and of course me, the Empress of the planet, and the decider of all things. Eventually, when I take over and just rule the whole world and just like, hey, let's stop all this stupid stuff. But anyway,
what did you say? Empress of the what? Empress of the planet? Oh, huh.
If I'm
That's
an
interesting.
Empress, I'm Empress of the whole planet.
Yeah, that's right.
Go big or stay home.
That's right. That's right.
All right, so hi, I'm Jenny-Jaymes Gunn and my show partner Christian Cano. What's up? Long time no see.
Yeah. I since I'm in Charlotte, so are you, Charlotte, North Carolina, and we're gonna be entering the 3 coldest days of the year. It's like dropping down to 21 degrees the next 3 nights, and we may get snow this week, which it won't happen. You know how you grew up in Texas, you know how it is. We're gonna get snow. No.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway, so I decided to hang out on the beach for the show. So
yeah. I like the beach background. I got my traditional background back here because I'm not fancy like you, but we have 6 pretty interesting topics that we're gonna follow real quick. So we're gonna try to stick to the 6-minute format that's been working for us, and it also makes us behave so we don't run for an hour or more, which we never have.
Yeah,
but anyway,
never.
So our first one's pretty interesting, and it's urine like pee, urine a cult, and the Trump cultists have come up with a new idea to cure COVID or prevent COVID, and it's to drink your own pee. And it is just started, and it's flooding the nation. And
I've never heard that one.
It's a new one.
Well,
and,
I
several cultists over the last week.
Okay,
literally drinking their own pee.
It sounds like a fetish that they just wanted to make it normal.
I think so too. But we've
those libertarians.
They're key parties.
You're not the boss of me.
Yes, I'm a grown adult. We can do whatever we want in our meetings. But it's just like, well, a lot of conservatives, they project a lot of their own internal chicanery and ideas of sexuality. But I thought it was probably one of the funniest ones. I saw it on Twitter, and then I saw this guy named Steve Hassan that is a kind of a historian. He talks about cults, and he's written a book about the Trump cult and stuff like that.
Yeah,
and it kind of leads to a deal of, he talks about Mike Pence, and Mike Pence is basically saying, that Americans are exceptional, and it's because they're, inheriting the kingdom of God and manifest destiny all over again and all that. And so basically his premise is that all conservative groups are basically cults. And so, they come up with these ideas like drinking their own pee, drinking horse paste, whatever it is, anything but actually taking the proven preventative measure, which is but his take is that conservatism, especially here in the United States, is all based on cults and their cult.
You made a good point, Jenny, and I was just thinking, growing up as a I didn't know we were poor, because when you're little, you don't know you're poor because everyone else around you is. So you're like, we're just like everyone else. But we used like aloe vera for if you had a burn, and if you had a stomach ache, you drank some Sprite or 7-Up, and whatever. And so we used natural remedies, but only because we couldn't really afford the real stuff. So I think that's the difference between growing up poor and growing up crazy, is when you're crazy, you try these remedies even when you can afford the stuff that works. And so that's, I think, what the different, these people who are doing these, remedies, and that's great. I mean, I think you should try to feed yourself as natural as possible, but I don't think that should substitute like science.
Well, And you know,
Unless you
really,
like being peed on, I guess. I don't know.
well, I mean that you know that's a jellyfish thing. You know, so you
Exactly.
talk about jellyfish, you're supposed to pee on them, and it's supposed to
Well,
release
well, Jenny, maybe they confused that. Maybe they confused the
COVID with
purpose of
jellyfish.
pee. Yeah, maybe they didn't read. Maybe that with the book they were reading, that chapter got cut in half, and it went from jellyfish to I don't know.
Maybe they just drank a little bit too much of the Kool-Aid. You know, it's
Yeah,
just
that's
like.
right.
But I think it's so bizarre that we live in an era where our federal government has bought ample amounts of vaccines. Everybody can have one for free on the house.
Yeah.
You don't have to pay for it. You don't have to pay for the appointment. You don't have to pay for a doctor's, like nothing. You just walk into a vaccine center.
Yep.
Roll up your sleeve. They shoot you, and you go on down the road. And I find it so amazing because you brought up, you know, poverty and cost, stuff like that. This literally, like, even my Republican dad said the same thing. Is like, well, anytime the government's giving you something that's safe and it's free, you take it.
Exactly.
Like, he's a very practical, you know, retired military type. Like, no, vaccines are normal. We got vaccines all the time when we got them. Like, it's just that logical type person that seems to be escaping a certain faction of the Trump cult Republican Party. And but that Steve Hassan does talk about the religiosity part of it. I hear voices from God, and God's telling me to, you know, do this or do that or whatever. And Mike Pence talks a lot.
Yeah, don't you think, you know, like really diehard Trump people, like about a year ago, the first thing out of their mouth used to be, well, we're not a cult. Don't you think when that's the first thing out of their mouth?
Well,
by the way, I'm not a cult. Well, no one's asking. You're the one that said it.
Projection, you know, like they talked about Trump, you know, he won because he's going to fight against the pedophiles. But then you come to find out that Matt Gaetz is a pedophile, Jim Jordan's a pedophile, and Dennis Hastert was a convicted pedophile, and he was the Speaker of the House for the Republicans years ago. And you go down the list, or they've got wild kinks and fetishes like drinking pee to cure COVID, or you know, they're into pool boys or whatever, or whatever. You just go, how many stones do they need to cast in their glass houses before you just go, maybe when they say it, you automatically start looking into why they're saying it. Like, hey, we're not a cult. You probably are.
Yeah.
But definitely, you're in a cult. I mean,
I was going to tell you something. You know, there was someone who posted something. Oh, we already changed. Anyway, never mind. I'll get to that next time.
We're over time. But
go ahead.
The next one is, it's magic. A QAnon podcaster, or I guess she was a QAnon podcaster.
Oh, she died.
Kirsten Weldon. I don't know if I pronounced her name right.
Okay.
But the phenomenon is that I mean, she was going online podcasting all the way up to her death. Basically, she was dying of COVID and was still spewing vaccine disinformation, stuff like that.
I think I saw that. Yeah.
And it just blows my mind that there you are in your last days. You know you're dying. I mean, you know, because the COVID attacks your organs, can attack all kinds of things in your body, and especially she was not vaxxed. You know, she was anti-vaxxer, and you're sitting there and you're spending your last words still railing against a vaccine that could have saved her life. And I kind of wonder. Like every once in a while, I try to do what you do, which is put myself in her shoes. And I'm going, can you imagine? Because this, you know, everything you put on the internet now goes on forever. It's on for perpetuity. And you just wonder if she did have family members that survived, and would they see those videos, and if they ever watch them again, going, wow, you know, how delusional she was, or how she was just so married to the idea that the vaccines.
What was her name? Kirsten
CRISTEN. Last name is Weldon. WELDON. And
I'm looking at the article. I saw this, and that was actually going to be one of our 3 topics, but I completely forgot that I had seen it. And it says that her followers were going to they were going to terrorize the hospital that she died in because they believe that they're the ones that killed her. They're, I don't know, just thoughts and prayers. I don't know.
Yeah.
It just,
And I think, one of the odd things is, and I think we're going to see this come up more and more. And I read an NPR article early this morning, and it was a doctor that was talking about essentially making decisions on who's going to live or die.
yeah, I know we talked about that last week. Yeah.
And he essentially said what I said, which is we're going to have to make decisions, and we're going to have to decide based on people's statuses, which he was trying not to say that we're going to ration unvaccinated people's access to medicine, but he essentially said we're going to triage them at home, and we're going to start sending some people away, because what's happening is we're having people die of other afflictions like heart attacks, strokes, diabetes, whatever, and or we just don't have the staff anymore because they've either died or they're injured by COVID.
Yeah.
To take care of everybody. Because as of right now, as of yesterday, we have 135,000 people in American hospitals. We only have 790,000 staff beds.
Yeah.
So that means literally over 1 out of 7 beds right now are filled up with COVID patients. And almost 98% of those people are unvaccinated people. They're overwhelming the system. And he basically said, we're going to have to start figuring out how to ration this and get this back to normal, which I think is the first conversation of many for them saying, we got to refuse unvaccinated people.
Yeah. Well, I today when I was on the treadmill at the gym, I had to throw that in there. Today when I was at the treadmill at the gym, there was, I had my mask on, as I always do, and I go in the afternoon where there's hardly anyone there. 6 treadmills down, there was a lady on the treadmill, probably young 30s. She looked maybe Hispanic or Persian or, kind of olive looking skin, didn't have a mask on. And I heard, and of course, the first one I never turned because that's just rude. Not long later, then I had to turn. And that's when I realized she didn't have a mask on. And I thought, okay, what do I do? She was only on for maybe 2 more minutes left, got off the treadmill, I guess went to go do working out, didn't wipe. You're supposed to, after you get off, spray, wipe everything down. I thought, should I be a Karen? Or do I just go, I've got my mask on, I'm doing what I need to do. And I thought about that for a while. I was like, what do you do in those kind of situations? I don't know. So there are people who are still clueless. And,
well, first
and
of all, that's just nasty. If you
exactly. Even if it wasn't COVID, you're supposed to wipe things down, right?
Yeah. Before like pre-COVID, and especially because I've been a gym rat myself. I spent an inordinate amount of time working out. Let me tell you something. Back in the day, if you saw somebody like that, you just went over to them and said, "Look, here's the thing. You didn't wipe down the last station you're at. You need to go back and wipe it down."
Exactly.
This is how you teach in a gym, because for one, that's just nasty. That's just what a gross slob that is to run on a treadmill.
But the gods were with me, because right after that happened, someone came into the row in front of me to get on the treadmill. No, not the one where you step.
Right.
It's like you step like that. Yeah, and got on that one, which was nice to look at. So it was like, all right, I guess, and had a mask on. So I was like, yay! All right. And then my time ran out. And then my time ran out. That's right.
And the next one is, here's your side. So Rand Paul has been fundraising off slandering Dr. Fauci. And in fact, he's set up a fundraising website.
Rand Paul.
Rand Paul, Senator.
Oh, I thought you said Grandpa.
No, Rand Paul. I'm sorry, I didn't
said
enunciate very well.
your Paul's running for office, Jenny.
No, both my grandfathers are dead. They've been dead a long time too, like a long
Okay.
time.
I'm sorry.
Rand Paul, senator from Kentucky, has been actually using a campaign raising scam with lots of anti-Dr. Fauci propaganda on the deal, just saying all kinds of lies. What's gotten to the point, 2 weeks ago, there was a guy heading from California, got stopped in Iowa for whatever reason, and they found an AR-15, but a manifesto quoting Rand Paul, the senator from Kentucky, reasons why he needed to come to Washington, because he was heading towards Washington, D.C. Kill Dr. Fauci. So Dr. Fauci was on the list. A lot of other Democrats too, but Dr. Fauci was first, and he was inspired by Rand Paul. Well, Dr. Fauci called that out today in the Senate. With Senator Paul. And and even had screenshots of Rand Paul's website, his fundraising range. So basically running this scam like a lot of Republicans are, calling out all these crazy things and saying all these lies, and then say, by the way, donate to my campaign. You know, Marjorie Taylor Greene's doing it.
So what did Rand Paul do? I mean, what did they do?
He converted it back to Dr. Fauci and started claiming Dr. Fauci again. Of course, he didn't address that, just like basically his hypocrisy for asking for money for Kentucky because of their tornado disaster, even though he shamed Puerto Rico and Texas for taking government money.
So Jenny, what do you think is this is something that like libertarians and Republican libertarians do a lot. They pinpoint on one person, whether it's AOC, whether it's Nancy Pelosi, whether it's Dr. Fauci, and it's like they have to create this enemy in this person, and they do it. I've noticed this is something that they do. There aren't a lot of other people who actually do things like that, but they're I don't know what it is, but we had, our other two co-hosts that we used to have, the libertarians, they hated Dr. Fauci. They hated Dr. Cohen from North Carolina. I remember one time one of our co-hosts got triggered by, how can you support a killer and this? I'm like, calm down, girl. It's just
First of all,
what do you think it is?
Conservatives have pretty simple one-track minds. They and their followers and their cult, they are really good at keeping a very simple message. They use the KISS method, keep it simple, stupid. Because quite frankly, they're the same ones that are convincing people to drink their own pee to cure COVID, and horse paste, and blowing out their liver. So I mean, realistically, for you to be a Republican or a libertarian and to believe into the absolute flat out lies that they spew that they've spewed since Nixon on. Reagan did the same thing. He demonized the Soviet Union. They're the evil empire and all that. And they fixate on a specific thing like socialism or a person or a thing or a concept, and they demonize it to discredit it as much as humanly possible. Because they know it works. They know that socialism mixed with a free market economy works. And they're even more mad because the European Union is so successful. And they're all mixed economies that they've the life in Europe for the most part is way higher standard of living than it's
but that's what's so but it's there's just I've noticed that in some libertarians, and I've noticed that in some people that we know, and I've noticed people who are like that, like Rand Paul gets fixated on one thing. I agree with you. He keeps it simple. This is the enemy. This is the enemy. This is the enemy. And it is, but I also think I wish we had like a sociologist or a psychologist or someone to examine, because there's something mentally off about that. I don't know what it is. When you're so focused on when all of your obsession gets on something like that. It's almost like a crazy football fan. You know, it's like something's a little off for someone who lives and dies the Dallas Cowboys.
but they die with their false narratives. I mean, they fixate on a false narrative, just like, you know, the big false narratives of the Cold War.
And Jesus people do that too.
Well, they wasn't the same. I mean, a single, you know, most cults, which Republicanism and Christianity are based on a cult, you know, model. You have to have a singularity of thought. You have to have that simple mindedness, that one track mind to pitch. You're going to pitch it until people stop believing it. You know, just like you know, Germans in 1945, they found so they started surrendering to the Allies for that reason. So the next subject is let's do it again. And you know, we've passed civil rights and voting rights bills off and on multiple times since the 1960s. And the most recent one we passed in 2006 when President George W. Bush was president. The last Voting Rights Act to protect voting was passed 98-0 in the Senate that year. Ironically, for some reason, all Republicans in the Senate right now are completely against guaranteeing free and fair elections. In the Senate. We have a few Democrats that are holding out that don't even want to waive the filibuster. So I wonder what's changed in America in the last, I guess, 16 years now, since 2006, that we've always agreed that voting rights was a fundamental thing. We agreed in 2006 under George W. Bush, a Republican, with a split Senate, but 98-0 it passed of the last Voting Rights Act. And so now we can't even agree to the most basic parts of decency for voting. And it's just kind of mind-boggling that our country's changed that much.
But don't you think, I mean, we talked about this kind of last time and the week before, that there's a certain part of the population that knows that the days are numbered, and that people who don't look like them are more and more, and it scares them. And I think in the past, people dealt with fear by using capitalism and saying, I'm afraid, but I'm going to take advantage of this. They're so stupid, they don't realize that this change, they could actually capitalize it, but instead they're fearing. So I'm fine with them being afraid and let the people of color capitalize on it. Are people who, people understand, you say that all the time, or you did when the, you know, you got to, if you can't pivot, you got to be able to pivot, you know? And so the people who are able to pivot are going to survive, and the people that can't pivot will die off. And it's unfortunate, but that's the reality.
And I believe that there's been such a groundswell of, I mean, racism has always been in our country, but I think there's been this really ramping up of racial racism in the verbiage, where they're just, I think making America great is definitely a nod to white supremacy and saying, well, are you saying that in the 1950s we were great when we were segregated and you know, you know, people of color knew their place, air quotes, you know, and I think that was just a dog whistle slogan to get white America energized behind Trump. And I think they've gotten people so scared about even having conversations, you know, like we talked about, you know, when we were talking about critical race theory and critical thinking, like they've gotten people so scared of science and logic and math and public schools and just anything that sounds intellectual. The conservative side of the ledger is got like, it's just the moment somebody sounds like a Dr. Fauci, for example, the moment they sound smart, oh no, we don't want anything to do with that. We don't want anything to do with smarting.
But you know what? But Jenny, don't you think if there are more people who still, I just believe that there are more of us who want, who embrace accomplishments, who embrace people who are good at what they do. I mean, I don't want a bunch of Joe Plumbers in Congress. I don't want maybe one, it'd be nice to have one, but I don't want them all. I want some really good professional negotiators. I don't want ambassadors who don't know how to negotiate. I don't want, so I do think that this phase.
What you're saying, you want competent people in office.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And so I do think that they're really, really loud. But I do think that there's a part of, at least for me, there's a part of me that knows, I'm just going to make sure that I pivot and look back and go, hey, sorry, you're going to be, as you said, you're going to be the kid wearing the letter jacket in high school when you're 50.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's that small minority. It's about 23% of our population that believes they know their days are numbered. You look at CMS schools, for example, where white students make up just barely a fourth or a fifth of the student bodies now. Mm-hmm. And I think if white conservative America doesn't realize it, I think they're feeling the, oh crap, well, when they do take over, they're going to do to us what we did to them.
Yeah,
there is part of it. Are they
I saw a show last week.
And I think there's a fear of that, but I think there's also just this greed factor. That white people have always been in charge, and they don't realize that even if the majority of our elected officials are people of color, there's still going to be conservative ones. There's going to be progressive ones. There's going to be a spectrum. Like, not all people of color are progressive. Not all are liberal. There's conservative. You can look at our Lieutenant Governor, Mark Robinson. It's a very, conservative wacko.
Yeah,
he's still, on the Republican side of the ledger. So, I think voices of reason will always, hopefully, rule our politics, no matter who they are. Next subject, the next category is Brooklyn's day off instead of Ferris Bueller's day off. Today in Brooklyn, New York, the largest high school in the United States, Brooklyn Tech, had over 6,000, their entire student body, walk out. I think it was about sixth period, and protest because the school district was forcing them back to school with a surge in Omicron in the New York City area. And the students were saying that the school district was being irresponsible, and they wanted to do remote learning for a few weeks so that they wouldn't get Omicron amongst themselves and take it home to their family, especially the ones that have vulnerable family members at home, either parents or grandparents or siblings. And so they staged a full-out walkout, a protest, and left school in the middle of the day. But over 6,000 students. It's a huge school called Brooklyn Tech. And kudos. We say this all the time. The younger generation, we need them to grow up faster so they can take over, because obviously us older people, we're not making good decisions at all. But what a phenomenal deal. And many of the students that are interviewed said, we're not skipping school to just skip school. We're trying to send a message that we need our adults to make better decisions. To when we just talked about it, pivoting when we need to pivot. And they said the school district needed to pivot and think about that before they came back to school after the Christmas, the holiday break. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, I think I think if they don't feel safe and comfortable, then they, that I agree with you. I mean, I know that there is like this push, especially as we get to like the midterms, there's this push to do everything we can to keep kids in school, because Republicans are running on like three things: critical race theory, woke culture, and kids in school during COVID. Those are the three things. Dan Bishop, that's all over his stuff. And so I think I don't think the woke culture thing is going to work, because people don't really understand what that means. It's kind of a hokey thing. critical race theory. I think we have the ability before the election to educate people and go, don't you want people to think critically? That's why they're in school, even though there's no such thing as critical race theory in schools unless you're in law school. And so the only one that I think could stick would be the kids. They want to keep the kids in school. The problem is some of it may not be as safe. Some of these kids, especially the ones that can't get vaccinated, like who are under 5 years old, well, I guess they'd be in preschool or something. But I
but they can still reside in the same house, so
yes.
you may have a 14-year-old freshman that has two siblings and one of them may be too young.
Yeah,
or
that's true. Yeah.
An immune compromised family member or somebody living with them, because some families have multiple generations. We'll take, Mama Ruth, one of our co-hosts. She has 3 or 4 generations living under the same roof. With her mom, her generation, and then her kids and then her grandkids. So you got literally 4 generations living under the same roof. The youngest ones being immunocompromised because babies, can get COVID. We're seeing in Texas, for example, a 400% increase in children getting hospitalized with COVID.
That's
sad. So these kids here in New York, in Brooklyn there, make a really good point in their situation with 6,000 high school students. And they said the facility is not built for 6,000 kids.
Yeah.
And on top of that, there's literally no way to social distance 6,000 kids under the same roof.
Yeah, exactly.
And so their whole point is we needed to buy 2 weeks of homeschooling, distance learning, let Omicron die down because it is dying down in New York City. Let it cycle out and then we'll come back. And I thought it was a phenomenal point when the kids become the teachers. And I'm excited to see leadership like that. And whereas conversely, we heard a Texas politician, one moment is I can't remember which one it was, but it happened this week where one moment he was saying, need kids in school, we need kids in school, we need kids in school. But at the same moment, making fun of public schools, saying, well, they do teach about, homosexuality and this and that and critical race theory and all this. And I'm going, well, so which one is it? Is it the public schools are all trash and we just need to defund them? Or we need kids in public schools because we need babysitters? Because he basically referred to Texas public schools as overglorified babies.
Yeah.
And I'm going, which one is it?
Doesn't it, doesn't it make you wonder, like, people who are married to like elected, like crazy people like that who are in office, like Marjorie Taylor Greene's husband or Matt Gates's on and off prostitute
minors,
or
whatever.
Doesn't it make you or even our own Dan Bishop's wife, doesn't it make you wonder, they've got to be obnoxious, they've got to be like, God, I mean, that's got to be hard to live with someone like that, someone who is just so,
it is a reason
obnoxious.
Why Apple's computer stock is really good, because they sell a lot of AirPods. And I'm pretty sure if I was married to somebody that obnoxious, my stomach made a flip when I was thinking about
I know, but Jenny, you remember when we were talking? Yeah, remember we were going through like 2020, and it was like summer 2020, and then even we did 2021, and people were talking about how we need to open things up, and I jokingly said the only people who are really doing that are people who don't like the people they live with. Yeah. And I started thinking about that. And of course, then my sister got divorced. It's like, yep, that's right. It's exactly correct. And so I'm like, you really think about it. And I have to admit, even when I used to go to the sports bar, and I've been a couple of times now, the people that really hang out at the sports bar are people who don't want to go home. There's something unhappy at home that they don't, they want to get away from. So why be in, anyway, so I sometimes I feel kind of sad. I'm like, when I hear what you said about this person, who says these crazy kooky things, and we have Republicans in this area and say stupid things like that, I wanted to say, God, that must be tough to live with someone like that. I can't imagine. They're living in like their own hell.
Oh, I
Anyway.
mean, they're the inspiration for twin beds, that's for sure.
Exactly.
I mean,
That's right. Yep.
But bust a rhyme, bust the filibuster.
Bust a filibuster.
Representative Alma Adams from right here in Charlotte, tweeted something, I think it was today or yesterday. It said the filibuster had been mostly used between 1917 and 1994. Half of the bills that were filibustered during that time were civil rights bills.
Yeah.
You know, or / voting rights bills. That's she said, that's the legacy of the filibuster.
Yeah.
The filibuster traditionally, and just like the Electoral College, was primarily to give a minority amount of conservative people in River Tucky states more power than they needed. And you look at a Rand Paul that comes from a hillbilly state like Kentucky, that's just basically the armpit of the lower Midwest, filled with hillbillies and things of that nature, gives them an inordinate amount of power, especially in the Senate, where you got 2 senators from Kentucky, but you got 2 senators from California. And it's not representative. The filibuster definitely is something that's anti-democracy and anti-freedom. Yet we've modified the filibuster in some way, shape, or form 160 times since they created the filibuster. It's not in the Constitution. It's not a constitutional thing. And most importantly, they went with a simple majority and busted the filibuster 3 times just in Trump's years to nominate 3 different Supreme Court justices, 3 Supreme Court justices that were completely unqualified to sit on the court.
So I know that Biden and Harris were in South Carolina today giving a speech about the Voting Rights Act. And then I also know that Chuck Schumer has said that he's going to put something on the floor, let the Republicans stop it, because he's given January 17th as the deadline to pass something special, so that the 3 bills can go vote, 2 of the voting rights bills and 1 other bill. And then he's going to give Republicans 22 bills of their own that they can vote straight on. And the Republicans have said, no, they don't want to do it because they know that those are 2 very important bills. So I think what's really important is Chuck Schumer got the kahunas to actually do it. I hope he does. And I hope that Biden puts so much pressure, because there were Black community leaders that boycotted Biden's speech today because they said that was his number 1 promise, and he hasn't pushed hard enough. And he won South Carolina in the primary, and he promised them that he would vote for voting right, push it. And I think the feeling within the Black community is you're not putting the full weight of your presidency like you are in the Build Back Better bill. And so it'd be interesting. I hope they do that. We got to. I hope they do, because I don't know, Jenny. I'm kind of like, I hate to say it like this, but I'm preparing myself for the worst. I'm preparing myself for the Supreme Court deciding about a lot of things. And I'm also preparing myself in case 2022 does not go the way I think it might go. And I'm trying to prepare myself, we got to deal with it. We got to pivot. But I'm really hoping we don't have to do it. Does that, you know what I mean? But this is what's terrible. It is what I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I was going to say this. And sometimes I do feel a little guilty. This household has the ability to mingle in with whatever happens. There are many households who don't have the ability because they're darker colored skin, they're more marginalized and so forth, and they don't have that. So I'm preparing myself, but there's a part of me that knows that if we don't get a Voting Rights Act, if we don't get these things, there are a lot of people that are going to, it's going to be very hard for them. And I don't know what we do other than keep trying to fight, you know? Does that make
Well,
sense?
I think it's a multi-front war. I think
Yeah.
one is, and I've noticed that Biden and Harris have both done a pretty good job of messaging
Yeah.
and when they're and I think the one thing I have noticed with the Biden administration is the methodical ability to go, we're going to deal with what's in front of us right now.
Yeah.
You know,
Okay.
so when he first took over, he made sure he
Yeah.
said we can't have a stable economy without getting the vaccine rolled out
Yeah.
now. Like that's the number one deal.
Well, now they're ragging on him about not having enough tests and that he wasn't prepared. And
then every crisis he's met head on at that time. And I think, and he said it a little bit in the fall. He said we're going to address voting rights in the winter session. So I believe that not only is he going to address it, but you are now seeing the rhetoric from him lately that's been a very hard shift. And even a lot of people that do a lot of messaging for him are saying the same thing. It's time now. It's time now. I see, and he already said today, and many other Democratic leaders said today, we're going to bust the filibuster. It's inevitable. They forced their hand. We tried to play nice. We tried to give them as many shots as we could. And when it comes down to it, Biden's already said, well, we're going to do away with the filibuster if need be. And has made that promise. Now, I haven't seen him really break a promise yet. He's maybe not gotten to some things that he did make a campaign promise, but he's also been in office. He's still about a week to change.
Is that crazy?
Office a year. I mean, it was a long year, but we got to remember he's done more in 1 year than Trump did in 4. And very progressive things, very positive things. He's done more than I expected. That doesn't let him off the hook for 2022. But I do believe, I think he hears loud and clear from the chief constituencies of our party that voting rights is a very high priority before it's too late. And I think he knows that he needs people to win governorships, win Senate seats, win and he understands that if he wants his presidency and his agenda to go through, he needs those support candidates on the state level and on the congressional level to be viable candidates.
So for I know the sense I have gotten is from an African American in our Black community, voting rights is the number one issue.
Right.
Without voting, without your ability to vote fairly, you might as well be back in the 1940s and 50s because people can change things and so forth. And so
100%.
I know within our Black and African American community, it is the number one issue. With progressives, like white progressives and stuff, it's probably like 3 or 4. With like Latinx individuals and whatever, we've been conned by white people to say, well, if you want to vote, just vote, And so we, I don't know why you have to worry about ID. I have an ID when I buy my beer, And so, my fear is, and I hope the African American community.
Okay. I think those are white moderates. I don't think those are white progressives. I don't think.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Progressives, I consider myself a white progressive. And I listen to mostly white progressive podcasts.
Yeah. But is that your number one issue though?
Yeah. I mean, it's, I don't know if I had to rank them.
Yeah.
Especially coming into 2022, I think it's a yes and a no, because I think also too, we also had to stabilize the economy. We had to get the vaccine out. And I think the one thing that he did, I think that Biden did that was more successful than Obama was that he realized what needed to get done and what order it needed to get done to build momentum. And the one thing that Biden has been super successful in his first year is making sure methodically with no fanfare, with no deal. I'm more of a Biden fan than I was when he got elected.
Yeah.
I was really, really worried about him.
Yeah.
I'm not as much. I mean, you still can't trust any politician, but
Yeah.
but I mean, I feel like he has a sense of urgency that we haven't seen in a president in a long time on our side of the ledger.
He to me, he seems like, I know that like my friend Stu, is part of the group that makes fun of him, that says, oh, he's got to read a teleprompter and he's like, mumbling this. You know what? Those are something I would never make fun of someone who's a senior like that. But I will say there is an advantage to being older at his age. He doesn't have a lot of life left here on Earth.
Yeah.
So he's probably more likely to do something because it's right rather than because it's political. So almost like John McCain did towards the end of his life, where he voted down like that. And I think he's like the grandpa that's willing to say, you know what, let's do it. It's the right, exactly. And so that
Trevor
I like.
Trevor Noah said, I think from now on we need to elect for president. We need to elect 80-year-olds that know they don't have a long term.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
And that'll vote because they're not worried about running for re-election. They run their presidency with the urgency of of buying a calendar 1 month at a time. Because I really believe that President Biden is trying to squeeze 8 years worth of presidency into these first 2 years. And I believe his 2022 agenda is going to be as aggressive, if not more aggressive. In
I hope so.
Because quite frankly, I don't expect him to run in 2024. And
well, he did say, Jenny, that if Trump decided to actually, no one thinks he's actually going to run. I think everyone believes he's just raising money. But if he actually is stupid enough, which he is stupid, to actually run because he's pushed up against the wall and he's got his ego, whatever, Biden said he would have to run because he doesn't want him to be president.
Well, I think Biden's going to do what he needs to do, but I don't think I'm 95% sure he's not going to run again.
Yeah. Well, I know you made the prediction, so we'll see. Yeah,
and
we'll
I'm going to stick to my prediction. But
I don't think Trump's going to run.
No, well, I don't think he can. I think by the time that they 14th Amendment him. Oh gosh, I completely forgot. That should have been one of our current event topics. That was going to be the bonus one. I was going to throw that in.
Go ahead. Okay, go ahead.
The 14th Amendment's going to get him again. So he's starting with Cawthorn, and
I saw that yesterday.
That's actually going to apply that to Cawthorn first. So 14th Amendment, Section 3 says basically if you're a politician involved with an insurrection of any kind because of the Civil War, that you will be ineligible to ever run for office again, including the next election. Even if you're a sitting politician, you cannot run in 2022. Yeah, and he's applying it to Cawthorn first. And then
well, I know he's being sued, right? There's some voters that are suing him. And my understanding, because I saw it last night, like late last night at 10 o'clock, that there are 11 voters that are suing him with a group, like a progressive kind of group, and they are suing him. And the lawsuit is to invoke that to prevent him from running again. And of course, his staff is saying, it's frivolous, yada, yada, yada. But interestingly, I think the people that make that decision are the Board of Election judges, and the Board of Elections in North Carolina are majority of who is the governor. And the Board of Elections are 3 Democrats and 1 Republican in all counties. I believe that's correct. And so they have to make the decision. And then, of course, I'm sure that will be appealed because this is a pretty big case. I mean, it's never, my understanding is reading the article when I was on the treadmill, that that they passed that amendment after the Civil War because of the Civil War, but it's never been invoked. And this would be the first time that it's actually ever invoked, because no one's ever thought to use it, because we've never really had like an insurrection like this.
So, I mean, the last insurrection.
But this is exactly, but this is exactly what it would be for. Yeah. And so I do think this is a great, I'm just applauding these voters for doing this, because I do hope that other voters do the exact same thing, and they follow the Trump lawsuit, throw everything against the wall. All we need is one of them to win.
Yeah. Well, and the interesting thing too is that, with any landmark cases, you have to have case precedent.
Yeah.
And so this will set the case precedent on how we'll deal with insurrections now, since we have so many of them.
Because apparently Madison Cawthorn has like actually written stuff like, this is going to be a bloodbath and all this kind of stuff. I mean, he is like the crazy. Actually documented. Not the only one. No, I know, but he actually he.
Oh no, he said something.
I think he probably didn't realize that this doesn't fall under free speech. He's actually an elected official.
So it should be responsible. Yeah,
exactly.
And I think the most important thing is how irresponsible Republicans have been the 4 years when the other guy was president, and even since then, how utterly I think every public official has a minimum amount of decorum and minimum amount of duties that you should be able to do that will help all of our neighbors, that you should say is a minimum standard of operation. And Republicans have completely thrown that out the window and said, screw it. We won't believe in science. We won't believe in vaccines. But
don't you think, Jenny, because they haven't, because this actually is not, I think it happened yesterday. They filed the suit or whatever they did. Don't you think when they find out who these 11 voters are, I would not be surprised if some of those voters were Republican, because the establishment Republican Party hates Madison Cawthorn.
Well, yeah.
And so I wouldn't be surprised if it's a mixture of voters who actually signed up.
At the end of the day, I've said this the whole time, even back in 2019.
Yeah.
I said all these extremists in the Republican Party, starting with the other guy and working your way down to Cawthorn, it's at the end of the day, the Republicans are going to have to purge them and hang them out to dry.
Yeah.
Or what's left of them, just like my hospital prediction, saying at some point they're going to have to make decisions on the unvaccinated on what they're going to do with them. Yeah. The other thing is that I've said is the Republican Party is going to decide if they're going to even be allowed to exist as an entity.
Yeah.
Or we can have to close them down permanently and label them a terrorist group. Because currently, right now, they're on the road to being labeled a terrorist group and an insurrection group, and basically operating like an organized crime deal, violating RICO standards. At some point in time, they got to make a choice if they want to plug back into the political system.
Yeah.
Realize we need to all work for the common good and the progress of our nation, or do we just need to wash our hands of them, get rid of that party, and say there'll be other parties that will fill the void. There's tons of political parties out there. There's the Party, the Libertarian Party. There's the Humanity First Party. There's so many parties. There's a Unicorn Party.
I just
Green is right that there's a national force coming. I just don't think she realizes that everybody else is going to serve the Republicans the papers and say, we love you. Here's our national restraining order. Y'all are done.
I just don't think, having lived in DC for a while and knowing some Republicans, the ones that I have met and so forth, I just don't know there's ever going to be another party that is so allegedly conservative that has so many gay people running campaigns. So they go hand in hand, just like we talked about this before, Baptist churches and music ministers. They're just they just go hand in hand. I mean, when I lived in DC both times, I don't know how many gay people I met that worked for Republicans, and they were all
every good show production. And
exactly.
Republicans are so performative; they're just like a Broadway show.
But don't you think? I mean, think about Jenny.
Has to have gay people.
Think about the tweets from Ted Cruz,
Oh.
from Dan Bishop, from Lindsey Graham, all the snarky tweets. There's some gayness in those tweets, and it takes a little bit of girl, watch this.
But it's not too off their personal message too.
Exactly.
Just saying.
So
Can't be too far off, Brad. But anyway, that we have gone over our 30-minute time.
Yeah.
And on that note, especially with this being two queers in a truck,
yes,
there's a whole lot of queeniness in the queens of the Republican Party, and those ladies,
the queens,
may flame out and sashay away, as RuPaul
yes.
says. Everybody, thanks for watching. Have a great week. Be safe out there.
See you next week. No music?
Oh shoot! Oh. I forgot the music. I blew it.
I was practicing my dancing. It's a dancing queen.
There we go.
Bye.